In the Ashanti kingdom of Mbarara, market day was not just for trading, it was for showing the strength of the throne. On the first market day after King Luwero's coronation, the morning drums spoke of plenty, and the air was sweet with the smell of roasted plantains. The palace shone with gold gifted from his late father's reign. King Luwero was young, handsome, and proud. His father had taught him that, a wise king plants today to feed tomorrow, but those words felt heavy and old. The royal treasurer, Ofori, a bent man with eyes that had seen 4 kings, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the people are waiting," he said carefully. "But so are the men who will not forgive debt." Luwero laughed. "Let them wait. Today, the people will know they have a king who gives without counting." From the market square, the sound of drums grew louder, like a heart racing toward danger. Beyond the palace gates, a man in a red cloak stood watching the crowd, his lips curling into a smile that promised nothing good. The sun painted the streets gold as King Luwero entered the market with his entourage. Traders bowed low, shouting praises. Women waved their cloths in the air, and drummers beat rhythms that made the ground throb. Everywhere Luwero turned, treasures called to him, bright kent woven by master hands, ivory carved into shapes of spirits, gold beads that glimmered like captured sunlight. He bought without counting. Double the price, he ordered for goods he liked, and the traders cheered his generosity. But the people's joy was mixed with whispers. Ofori the treasurer walked behind, clutching his ledger as though it could shield the kingdom from the bleeding of its wealth. Near the goat seller's corner, the man in the red cloak watched. His eyes did not follow the king's face, but his hands, his rings, and the way the gold chain around his neck bounced with every step. When Luwero stopped before the stranger's stall, the man bowed deeply and said, "Your Majesty, I have something not even gold can buy, unless you dare to win it." The stranger set down a board of polished wood, carved with grooves. In each groove sat small white shells and black stones. The crowd pressed closer. "It is a game of skill and fortune," the stranger said, voice smooth as palm oil. "If you win, I will give you double what you stake. If you lose," he paused, letting the words hang like a snake above a sleeping bird, "you will owe me the same." Luwero's pride burned. "I have never lost to anyone," he said. He signaled to Ofori. "Bring me 10 bags of cowries." The game began. The stranger's hands moved like wind over water, and the crowd murmured at his skill. Luwero played with confidence, laughing with each move. Ofori's knuckles whitened on the ledger. He leaned close. "Your Majesty, be careful." "Silence," Luwero snapped. When the last shell was turned, the stranger's smile widened. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "the game is mine." The market went silent. Luwero frowned. "One loss does not matter. Double or nothing." The stranger nodded. Again the shells danced. Again Luwero laughed too loudly, betting more each time. By the 3rd loss, he had pledged the royal horses. By the 4th, he had promised 3 storehouses of grain. The crowd's excitement turned to uneasy silence. Some elders shook their heads. Ofori whispered urgently, "My king, stop before you gamble the throne itself." But Luwero only smiled at the stranger. One more game. This time, when the shells fell still, the stranger leaned close, his breath cold. "Your Majesty, you now owe me what your treasury cannot pay. I will collect by sunset." Far away, at the kingdom's edge, the sound of foreign war drums began to rise. At sunset, by the time Luwero returned to the palace, traders and debt collectors stood at the gates. They carried scrolls with his promises: land, grain, gold, even the royal stables. Ofori begged, "We must call the council of elders before you sign away more." But Luwero brushed past him. The people love a king who spends for them. That night, the elders met in the moonlit courtyard. Their voices were sharp. "The boy has bled the kingdom dry in a day," said one. "If we do not act, we will all be servants by the next moon," said another. Outside, the red-cloaked stranger walked the streets, speaking to foreign traders in hushed tones. As the elders argued, a young guard ran in, breathless. Armies are moving toward Mbarara. They come to collect the king's debt. Morning brought no comfort. Soldiers from distant lands filled the market square, their spears like a forest of steel. Traders closed their stalls. Luwero walked among them, forcing a smile, but women pulled their children away. Men turned their backs. The stranger approached with a scroll. "Your Majesty, the time has come to pay." When Luwero said he could not, the man only shrugged. "Then I will take what I please." His soldiers began seizing cattle, rolling barrels of grain toward the gates. Gold was stripped from the palace doors. Ofori followed helplessly, recording the losses. A woman's voice rose from the crowd, "You are no king, only a thief in fine cloth." And the crowd began to shout. The palace guards struggled to hold the angry people back. Stones clattered against the golden gates. In the council chamber, elders argued over what to do. "He will bring ruin if we let him stay," one said. "But to cast out a king is to curse the land," said another. Ofori stood. "Better a cursed land than a starving one." Outside, the stranger's men marched away with the last of the cattle. Luwero watched from his balcony, jaw tight. A messenger arrived from the borderlands, his face pale. "The gold mines have been seized. The debtors say the throne itself will be theirs in 7 days." That evening, the oldest elder, Nana Kwabena, entered the king's chambers. His voice was low but firm. "Luwero, the throne is not a stool for playing games. You sit on the bones of your ancestors. You have shamed them." Luwero turned away, but the elder's next words froze him. "If you do not leave by sunrise, the people will drag you from the palace." Luwero laughed bitterly. They would not dare. But in the courtyard below, the sound of sharpening blades drifted up through the night air. A single torch was thrown over the palace wall, and the smell of burning cloth began to rise. The torch struck the storehouse roof. Dry thatch caught quickly, and flames leapt into the night sky. Guards scrambled to form a line, passing buckets of water. Luwero ordered the palace gates shut. No one enters. But the people were no longer cheering crowds, they were a storm. More torches sailed over the walls. Smoke thickened, choking the air. Ofori grabbed the king's arm. "We must leave before the fire reaches the inner court." Luwero hesitated, staring at the golden mask on the wall, his father's symbol of rule. From the other side of the gate came a voice, deep and commanding, "Open, or we will break it down." While the mob battered the front gates, Ofori led the king through a hidden passage known only to the royal family. It opened into the narrow alleys behind the market. The streets that had once been filled with traders now lay empty. Ashes drifted in the air. Luwero stumbled, unused to running. "Where will we go?" "Far from here," Ofori said. "The people's anger will not cool soon." They turned a corner, and found the red-cloaked stranger waiting, soldiers at his side. The red-cloaked stranger leaned on his staff, smiling as though greeting an old friend. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "did you think you could leave without settling your account?" Ofori stepped forward. "He has nothing left to give you. Take your debt and leave our land." The stranger's soldiers tightened their grip on their spears. "Oh, there is still one thing left," the man said, eyes gleaming. "The crown." Luwero's hand flew to his head. "Never." The stranger shrugged. "Then my men will take you instead." Behind Luwero, more footsteps echoed in the alley. The mob had found them. The alley was too narrow to escape. On one end, the stranger's soldiers blocked the way, spears ready. On the other, the mob surged forward, shouting curses. Ofori's eyes darted toward a wooden door half hidden in shadow. "This way." They burst through into a weaver's workshop. Looms stood half-finished, bright threads hanging like spider silk. The weaver gasped at the sight of the king, then quickly hid under her table. Luero and Ofori ran through the back, hearing the stranger's voice calling, "You can run, but I always collect what is mine." As they slipped into another alley, they saw soldiers wearing the colors of a neighboring kingdom marching toward the palace. These new soldiers carried no debt scrolls, they carried chains. The neighboring king had heard of Mbarara's weakness. Ofori pulled Luero into the shadows. "If they take you, it will not be as a king but as a slave." The young king's chest heaved. "I cannot go to the villages. They will kill me there." "Then we must reach the forest before sunrise," Ofori said. "The spirits may protect us where men will not." In the distance, the palace bell rang, 3 times, slow and heavy. It was the signal for the fall of a ruler. A vulture landed on the palace wall, watching them with black, unblinking eyes. They fled through fields where the moonlight silvered the tall grass. The forest loomed ahead, its trees bending like old women whispering secrets. The air grew cooler, the sounds of the market replaced by the calls of night creatures. Ofori lit a small torch. "Stay close. The forest remembers the footsteps of those who enter, and not all are allowed to leave." Luero stumbled over roots, sweat cold on his skin. "Do you think the elders will forgive me?" Ofori's silence was answer enough. From deep within the forest came the sound of drums, slow, heavy, and not of this world. The drums grew louder until the trees seemed to beat with their rhythm. Luero clutched Ofori's arm. "Who plays them?" "They say," Ofori whispered, "that they are the drums of the ancestors, calling the foolish to account." Shapes moved between the trees, figures in white cloth, faces hidden. They circled the 2 men, their movements slow but certain. A voice, deep as the earth, spoke, "King Luero of Mbarara, you squandered the gifts of your fathers. Why should your feet walk free on the soil you have shamed?" The circle of figures tightened, and one raised a staff tipped with burning embers. The ember-tipped staff stopped inches from Luero's chest. "We will not kill you," the voice said, "for death is too short. You will walk as one without name or land until you have learned the worth of what you threw away." The figures stepped back, melting into the trees. The drums faded, replaced by the chirp of night insects. Ofori helped the trembling king to his feet. "They have spared you," he said. "Spared?" Luero spat. "They have stripped me of everything." From the shadows, a familiar voice spoke. "Not everything, you still owe me." It was the red-cloaked stranger. The stranger leaned against a tree. "Give me the crown now, and I will let you live." Luero touched the gold on his head. "It is all I have left of my father." "Then keep it," the stranger said, "and I will take your life instead." Ofori stepped between them. "You will take neither. He is under the judgment of the ancestors now. Cross them, and you will bring their wrath." The stranger's eyes narrowed, but he backed away slowly. "This is not over, my king. Debt does not die." When he was gone, Luero realized the crown felt heavier than ever, so heavy he could barely hold his head up. For weeks, Luero and Ofori wandered from village to village. Doors closed at their approach. In one place, a child threw a stone at Luero and shouted, "That's the king who sold our cattle." They slept under trees, eating what little they could gather. Ofori grew thinner each day, his steps slower. One evening, they found a river and drank deeply. Luero looked at his reflection and barely knew the hollow-eyed man staring back. "I was a fool," he whispered. Ofori's reply was soft. "Fools can learn, if they survive long enough." From across the river came the sound of hooves. Soldiers were closing in. The soldiers' torches glowed like fireflies in the night. Ofori and Luero waded into the river, the cold biting their legs. Halfway across, Luero stumbled on a rock and the crown slipped from his head into the rushing water. He plunged his hands into the current, searching, but the crown was gone. Ofori grabbed his arm. "Leave it. Live to regret it." They reached the far bank, shivering. The soldiers searched the near shore but did not cross. Luero stared at the dark water. It is gone, the last of my father's gift. A voice on the wind seemed to whisper, now you are truly nothing. Years later, travelers spoke of a bent old man who swept the streets of distant towns for scraps. Some said he was once a king. Others said he was cursed for pride and greed. Luwero never returned to Mbarara. The throne passed to a cousin, who ruled with care and caution. The market of Mbarara thrived again, but the story of the king who lost a kingdom in one market day was told to every child. Ofori died in his sleep one quiet night, leaving Luwero truly alone. On his final day, Luwero sat under a tree and whispered to himself, wealth is like a river, it can feed or drown. I drank until it swept me away. And so he died, nameless, far from the palace where he had once been king. Pride without wisdom turns gold into dust. And a leader's greed can burn down a kingdom, but it is always the people who live among the ashes